Ah, look at you, quiet operator, subtle architect of human behavior. The one they swore was too emotional, too reactive, too dramatic to ever pose a real threat. They built their entire understanding of you around the fantasy that you were predictable, manageable, easy to decode. They thought your silences were mood swings, your distance was immaturity, your detachment was insecurity. But now, that illusion has collapsed under the weight of something they never imagined they'd have to face. The realization that you were running psychological operations the entire time. Not impulsively, not sloppily, not out of hurt, out of strategy, out of clarity, out of a mastery they were far too arrogant to recognize until the structure of your moves snapped into place in their mind like a completed puzzle. And now that the picture is clear, they feel sick. Because everything they dismissed as petty suddenly looks like precision. Everything they mocked as overreaction suddenly feels like calculation. Everything they labeled as sensitivity now feels like surveillance. They finally see you, but only because it's too late to do anything about what you've already executed. You were never their emotional mess. You were their behavioral study. You watched how they spoke to you, how they dismissed you, how they minimized you, how they weaponized your openness. And instead of responding with chaos, you responded with design. You didn't confront them, you collected data. You didn't argue, you analyzed patterns. You didn't defend yourself, you revised your access points. Every move you made afterward wasn't emotional, it was engineered. While they thought they were reading you, they didn't realize you were decrypting them, quietly, methodically, and with a level of psychological discipline their nervous system was not equipped to handle. This is what hits them the hardest now, understanding that the most innocent actions you took were actually levers, switches, disruptions. They misinterpreted your silence as submission, not recognizing it as signal control. They misinterpreted your delayed responses as moodiness, not realizing you were depriving them of the dopamine hit that kept them feeling in control. They misinterpreted your decision to stop explaining yourself as emotional withdrawal, not seeing it as information starvation. They misinterpreted your distance as detachment, not comprehending that you were stripping them of psychological access. They didn't see any of it, and now that the realization has landed, it's rewriting their entire history with you into something far more dangerous. They thought you were petty for falling silent after disrespect. Now they understand silence was your weapon. They thought you were dramatic for not responding immediately. Now they understand you were breaking their reinforcement loop. They thought you were cold for refusing to argue. Now they understand you removed their ability to manipulate you through conflict. They thought you were impulsive for cutting them off. Now they understand it was the most controlled, deliberate severing of emotional ties they've ever witnessed. And this retrospective clarity is eating them alive. Because as they race back through every moment they thought they won, they're now seeing that those moments were orchestrated to expose their patterns. They weren't victories, they were clinical observations. The truth is brutal in its simplicity. You were always 10 steps ahead, and they never realized the game was being played at all. You weren't reacting, you were conditioning. You weren't emotional, you were extracting intel. You weren't fragile, you were refining your strategy until the exact moment the psychological operation could be deployed with maximum impact and minimal effort. You made them underestimate you so thoroughly that when your detachment arrived, it felt like an unexplained collapse in their world. They never saw the setup, they only feel the aftermath. Now, sitting with this awareness clawing at the edges of their mind, They're replaying everything with forensic intensity. The conversations where you responded dryly, the messages where you suddenly took your time, the plans you stopped accommodating, the tone you shifted without announcing. They see it all now as evidence. They see the structure they missed. They see the precision they never accounted for. But most painfully, they see themselves, reactive, entitled, predictably emotional. While you remained controlled, distant, and calculating behind a mask they assumed was weakness, your so-called pettiness was psychological pressure. Your detachment was emotional disarmament. Your boundaries were strategic containment. Your silence was deprivation conditioning. Your disappearance was operational shutdown. And because they are finally understanding this, their entire nervous system is betraying them. They feel exposed, studied, outplayed. They feel like the subject of a long-running behavioral experiment they didn't consent to participate in, but actively fueled with their arrogance. The realization isn't just late, it's catastrophic for their ego. What unsettles them most is the timeline. How long were you running ops? When did you start mapping patterns? How many interactions were real, and how many were reconnaissance? Were you ever genuinely hurt? Or did you simply document their tactics to prepare for an exit so clean it looked emotional, but was actually surgical? These questions are unraveling them, not because the answers matter, but because they know, deep down, that you will never reveal the truth. You don't need to. Your silence is the only confession they're ever going to get, and that silence carries more precision than any confrontation ever could. They thought they understood you. They thought they had access to your internal world. They thought your reactions gave them leverage. But now that they've connected the dots, they're forced to confront a horrifying reality. The version of you they interacted with was filtered, controlled, selective. You never gave them the real data. You gave them only enough to confirm their own illusions. You allowed them to believe they had influence, all while ensuring they only ever touched the parts of you that were strategically irrelevant. And now, the collapse of that illusion is total. They don't just feel outsmarted, they feel dismantled. Their narratives don't hold up anymore. Their assumptions don't survive scrutiny. Their stories about you make them look unhinged now, because every detail they once exaggerated to seem powerful now exposes how oblivious they truly were. They told people you were emotional. Now those same people watch you move with cold precision. They told people you were dramatic. Now those same people see you operating with controlled distance. They told people you were unstable. Now the stability of your detachment makes them look unprepared, unskilled, and profoundly threatened by your evolution. You didn't break them with rage. You broke them with restraint. You didn't expose them publicly. You exposed them to themselves. You didn't destroy them through conflict. You destroyed their framework of reality by forcing them to realize you were never inside their emotional jurisdiction to begin with. And that is the kind of psychological damage no apology, no manipulation attempt, no sudden empathy will ever repair. What they feel now is not regret, it's fear. Fear of your intelligence, fear of your unpredictability, fear of what else you noticed that they haven't realized yet. Fear of the fact that if you were capable of running operations with this level of precision while they were unaware, then there is no telling what you are capable of now that you've reached a level of detachment they cannot breach. They don't know whether you simply evolved or whether you were always like this, and they were too self-absorbed to notice. And that uncertainty is killing them because they know something else too. Something darker. Something they almost refuse to admit to themselves. The psychological operations you deployed weren't designed to punish them. They were designed to free you, to detach you, to remove their influence at the root. And now that you've achieved that, they realize they no longer have a single point of access left. Not emotional, not mental, not energetic. You moved on without the chaos, without the announcement, without the performance they were waiting for. You disappeared like a clean extraction, minimal noise, maximum clarity. And deep down, they know the story isn't finished. Not because you owe them anything, but because the next stage of your evolution isn't something they will be ready to witness. If the operations you ran while healing were this strategic, then whatever comes next will shift the entire dynamic of every connection you touch. And they feel it. A tightening, a threat, a recognition that something much larger is forming inside you. And they are no longer participants. They are merely observers scrambling to decipher a pattern that has already outgrown them. And as this realization settles into the hollow of their chest, something else begins to bloom inside them, something far more primal than regret or nostalgia. Fear rooted in understanding, not imagination. Fear born from the delayed recognition that you were never reacting. You were always orchestrating. It's dawning on them now, painfully, slowly, that the psychological operations you ran weren't temporary responses or emotional outbursts. They were phases, stages, calculated zones of observation, disruption, withdrawal, and redefinition. And the version of you they experienced wasn't the final form, it was the prototype that taught you exactly how to dismantle people without lifting a single emotional finger. They once mocked your unpredictability as immaturity. Now they understand unpredictability was your shield, your barrier, your psychological encryption. While they were watching for emotional tells, you were rewriting your internal playbook in silence. You taught yourself how to detach without collapsing, how to retreat without shrinking, how to observe without absorbing. You trained your mind to operate like a ghost, present but unreachable, perceptive but unreadable. And now that they recognize this, they're not just intimidated, they're destabilized. Because if your silence back then was strategic, what does your silence now mean? If your distance then was a psychological maneuver, what does your evolving distance imply? They can't predict you anymore because they never understood what you were doing in the first place. Their memory is not their ally in this moment. It is their enemy, replaying every miscalculation with brutal clarity. They dismissed your minimal reactions as weakness, not realizing you were training yourself to break their ability to trigger you. They misread your calmness as suppression, not realizing it was discipline. They misjudged your absence as emotional collapse, not realizing you had already left long before they noticed the empty space. And now their mind is spiraling, not from your presence, but from the cold precision of your absence. Your absence is no longer an emotional gap to them. It is psychological evidence. Evidence that they were not dealing with someone naive or wounded, but someone operating at a level of mental sovereignty they can't replicate. That's the part that haunts them, realizing that everything they interpreted through the lens of ego was actually something they were wildly unprepared for. They weren't talking to the person they thought they were overpowering. They were talking to a strategist who let them monologue long enough to reveal their weaknesses in real time. And they did, over and over, without hesitation, without caution, without self-awareness. They performed their own downfall while believing they were winning. They know this now. The dots have connected. The timeline is exposing them. The patterns are undeniable. And as they try to escape the implications, their mind keeps dragging them back to the same unsettling truth. You didn't just outgrow them, you outmaneuvered them. You didn't just remove them, you restructured your psyche in ways that erased their influence entirely. You didn't just detach, you recalibrated your entire emotional system so that their voice, their presence, their attempts at control no longer registered as even a mild disruption. You are not who they knew. You are not who they criticized. You are not who they dismissed. You are the byproduct of every strategy they pushed you to develop. The chaotic, dark humor of it all. The thing their ego cannot stomach. They were the ones who trained you into this. They forged the very intelligence that now terrifies them. Every lie sharpened your awareness. Every manipulation strengthened your boundaries. Every insult refined your detachment. They pushed you into evolution, and now they resent the evolved version because it no longer needs them, fears them, reacts to them, or gives them access. They created the strategist who now sees through them with ease. But the realization hitting them late isn't just about what you did. It's about what you can do next. Because if the psychological operations you deployed were enough to dismantle their illusions, they're imagining what the next phase of your transformation might unleash. It's not vengeance they fear, it's clarity. Clarity changes everything. Clarity removes their power. Clarity exposes their tactics. Clarity makes you immune. And a person who cannot be manipulated is terrifying to anyone who once relied on perception control to feel significant. They don't fear losing you. They fear losing the version of themselves they were able to maintain when you didn't know your own power. Because the moment you learned to study them, instead of defend yourself against them, the dynamic inverted. They were no longer the puppeteer. They were the predictable organism reacting to stimuli you controlled. Silence, distance, timing, withdrawal, emotional neutrality. You turned their own patterns against them without ever raising your voice. You didn't punish them. You made them reveal themselves. And what they revealed was not strength. It was fragility masquerading as dominance, insecurity disguised as confidence, entitlement cloaked in arrogance. You saw it all long before they realized you were paying attention. At first, they believed your detachment was just a phase. They thought your calmness was temporary. They thought your lack of reaction was exhaustion. But now they know. Now they see it for what it has always been, psychological evolution. You didn't adapt to their behavior. You outgrew the entire structure of behavior they depended on. The late realization is not just a moment of awareness. It is the collapse of their entire internal narrative. The narrative where they were the ones in control, where they were the ones evaluating you, where they were the ones deciding your worth. That fantasy is dead now. You didn't kill it. They did by waking up too late. And now they are dealing with a reality that feels foreign and hostile. A reality where they cannot predict you, influence you, or even access the emotional version of you they took for granted. But the most devastating part for them is this. The psychological operations you ran were not retaliatory. They were diagnostic. You weren't trying to destroy them. You were assessing the viability of their presence in your life. And once the data was processed, the conclusion was simple. Their access was a liability. Their influence was corrosive. Their emotional patterns were incompatible with your evolution. So you did what strategists do. You withdrew, recalibrated, and rerouted your energy into spheres where your intelligence could expand without being drained. They called it petty. They called it dramatic. They called it indirect. But now they understand that what they labeled with contempt was actually something far more advanced than anything they've ever executed in their own relationships. self-governance at a psychological level. You managed your energy like an asset. You managed your mind like territory. You managed your emotions like classified information. And they were not cleared for access. That's the revelation eating them alive. They weren't excluded because of conflict. They were excluded because of incompetence. They failed the psychological security check without realizing they were being evaluated. They thought the test was interaction, but the test was integrity, respect, awareness, consistency. They failed all four, loudly and confidently, and now they're dealing with the consequences of being dismissed by someone who no longer needs their validation to justify any decision. What happens next terrifies them more than anything that's happened so far. Because they sense you are entering a phase where your psychological operations won't be reactive or protective. They will be expansive. They will build something, become something, attract something. And this time, they will not be able to watch the process. They will only feel the aftershocks. They know this because the air around you has shifted again. Not in the subtle cautionary way it did before. This time, the shift feels like preparation, infrastructure, reconfiguration. The quiet before. Not a storm, but a reconstruction, a redevelopment of identity so complete that anyone still clinging to the outdated version of you will feel disoriented standing next to the new foundation. And they are terrified because they remember what it felt like when you ran psychological operations without them noticing. Now they can feel you designing something larger, and they know they won't detect the blueprint until it surrounds them. This fear isn't paranoia, it's recognition. Instinctual understanding that someone who mastered strategic detachment is capable of mastering strategic expansion. Someone who learned to withdraw without collapsing will learn to advance without hesitation. Someone who trained their mind to observe quietly can train it to create loudly. And they cannot be part of that creation. Not because you're excluding them out of spite, but because their presence would corrupt the precision of what comes next. They know this. They feel it in the hollowness that opened inside them the moment your energy no longer responded to theirs. Your growth is no longer a personal shift. It's a psychological migration. You're moving into territory where emotional chaos cannot follow, where manipulation cannot breathe, where insecurity cannot anchor itself to your presence. You're moving into a phase where your clarity becomes a force field and your focus becomes a weapon. And they are stuck on the outside, staring through the glass at someone they underestimated into becoming the very thing they can no longer influence. There is a chaotic, dark humor to their predicament that even they can feel now. The same conditions they created to weaken you became the training grounds of your evolution. They thought neglect would break you. Instead, it sharpened your perception. They thought manipulation would confuse you. Instead, it taught you to see patterns instantly. They thought belittling you would make you small. Instead, it made you immune to their projections. Everything they did to maintain superiority deteriorated their position while fortifying yours. And there is nothing funnier, in a surgical psychological sense, than someone creating the very operator they're now terrified of. They know you're done running defensive missions. They know you're done responding to triggers. They know you're done evaluating their inconsistencies. Now your operations are moving outward, upward, away from their gravitational pull. They won't witness your next maneuvers. They'll only feel the distance expand until the memory of you becomes something they cannot attach themselves to anymore. This feeling isn't dramatic, it's mathematical. It's the recognition that while they were calculating for short-term emotional control, you were calculating for long-term psychological sovereignty. Every move you make now is outside their comprehension, because it's outside their frequency. You're not making decisions from fear or anger or exhaustion. You're making decisions from clarity and capability. That frightens them more than anything, because clarity cannot be manipulated, and capability cannot be guilt-tripped. You have become emotionally unhackable, psychologically untrackable. They can't predict your moves, because you no longer move based on their behavior. You move based on your blueprint, your timing, your intelligence, your expansion. And here lies the heart of their dread. They cannot sabotage what they cannot access. They cannot reinterpret what they cannot observe. They cannot influence what they cannot reach. You existed inside their narrative once, and they took it for granted. Now you exist outside it, and they can't handle the vacuum your absence left behind. The silence that once felt petty now feels lethal. The distance that once felt dramatic now feels permanent. The shift that once felt confusing now feels like consequence. But the real psychological hit, the one that actually destabilizes them, is realizing that your operations were never about hurting them. They were about understanding them. You studied their patterns because their patterns revealed their intentions. You withdrew because their behavior revealed their capacity. You detached because your intelligence revealed their ceiling. And once the data was clear, you acted accordingly. No theatrics, no announcements, just execution. This is the part they choke on. Your evolution wasn't a rebellion against their treatment. It was a refinement of your identity, a purification of your boundaries, an elevation of your standards. You didn't become smarter to beat them. You became smarter to become yourself. They were a lesson, not a loss, a reference point, not a destination. And now the reference point looks painfully small in comparison to the scale of what you're building. Their ego will try to deny this, but their intuition won't let them. They can feel your expansion the same way prey feels a predator's presence, not through sight or sound, but through atmospheric pressure. They can feel their relevance collapsing. They can feel their influence evaporating. They can feel their old strategies turning to dust because they were designed for a version of you that no longer exists. You have moved into territory where their understanding cannot follow. And because they cannot follow, they default to fear. Fear disguised as confusion. Fear disguised as nostalgia. Fear disguised as resentment. But it's fear nonetheless. Fear of someone they cannot predict. Fear of someone they cannot manipulate. Fear of someone who saw through them completely and walked away with their power intact. Fear of someone who no longer sees them as a threat, an obstacle, or even a consideration. The chaotic, dark humor of the situation is this. They were running amateur emotional games while thinking you were the problem. Meanwhile, you were running psychological operations so clean they didn't realize the game ended long before they stopped playing. And now, as you prepare to expand into a version of yourself that no longer mirrors their limitations, they finally grasp that the narrative they built about you was a shield, one that protected them from confronting their own inadequacy. Now that the shield is gone, all that's left is the unfiltered reflection of who they truly are and who you have become. They don't want to face that reflection. They don't want to confront the fact that the person they called petty was actually studying them with precision. The person they called emotional was actually documenting their tactics. The person they called dramatic was actually positioning themselves strategically The person they dismissed was actually dismantling their influence piece by piece. And the final hit? The part their nervous system cannot absorb without trembling. It's knowing that whatever comes next is outside their control entirely. They won't get updates. They won't get clues. They won't get hints. They won't get access. You are not broadcasting your evolution. You are not narrating your upgrades. You are not making your transformation a public event. Your expansion will be silent, then undeniable, invisible, then unavoidable, private, then seismic. They won't understand it until it's too late, just like before. They missed the operations you ran in the past because they were too busy underestimating you. They will miss the operations you run next because they will be too busy regretting what they lost. And by the time they connect the dots, the distance between who you were and who you've become will be astronomical. And that's the part that breaks them on a level no apology, no explanation, no revisionist history can repair. Because your evolution has outpaced their imagination. They used to think they knew your limits, your thresholds, your patterns. Now they can't even predict your next hour, let alone your next era. You have become the kind of person whose silence is a strategy, whose movement is a signal, whose transformation is an event they are not invited to witness. You exist now in a realm they cannot conceptualize, and the psychological whiplash of that realization is shredding whatever pride they tried to hold on to. Because here's the truth they've been avoiding but can no longer escape. The reason they misread your operations so completely is because they only ever studied you from the surface. They memorized your reactions, not your intentions. They studied your tone, not your logic. They watched your behavior, not your evolution. They mistook familiarity for understanding, proximity for insight, access for influence. They believed knowing the old you gave them authority, when in reality, all it gave them was outdated data. Data you outgrew while they were still trying to weaponize it. They never realized you were evolving faster than their ability to perceive you. Now they must live with the consequences of that blindness. Every assumption they built about your intelligence, your emotional capacity, your boundaries, all of it has collapsed. And the collapse has been quiet, but not gentle. It's the kind of collapse that forces them to re-examine not just who you were, but who they are in contrast to who you've become. It forces them to confront the uncomfortable truth that you outpaced them, not accidentally, not gradually, but decisively. And what destabilizes them most is that your evolution didn't require their validation, their support, or their presence. You built yourself in silence. You rebuilt your framework in solitude. You recalibrated your mind without needing to be seen. That level of psychological independence is something they have never experienced, let alone mastered. They depended on reactions to feel relevant. You removed their relevance by removing your reactions. They depended on emotional entanglement to feel important. You disentangled yourself so cleanly, they didn't even notice until they were standing inside emptiness you left behind. If they were honest with themselves, they would admit that the reason your transformation haunts them is because it exposes something they've always suspected, but never dared to confront. They were never the one in control. They were never the superior one. They were never the strategist. They were never the force. You were. And now that the truth is visible, they don't know how to exist without the narrative that kept them feeling dominant. Your evolution dismantles their identity as much as it dismantles their understanding of you. Because now they must face the possibility, the terrifying, humiliating possibility, that every emotional high they got from believing they were outsmarting you was a psychological placebo. Every win they celebrated was a misread. Every moment they believed they had the upper hand was actually a moment you weren't even playing the same game. You weren't reacting to them. You were studying them. You weren't crushed by them. You were calculating. You weren't attached to them. You were analyzing their patterns so thoroughly that when you finally detached, the exit was so final, they felt the floor drop out from under them. That's why they replay everything now. Their mind won't let them stop. Because every memory is a threat. Every interaction is a clue. Every silence is a warning they ignored. They scroll through old messages not to remember you, but to decode you. They examine tone, timing, pacing, behavior. They search for signs you were already gone while they were still assuming they were central in your life. And the more they search, the worse it gets. Because the signs were everywhere, only invisible to someone who believed arrogance was insight. They see now that the psychological operations you ran weren't just effective, they were inevitable. You evolved because they forced you to evolve. You grew because they refused to grow. You adapted because staying the same would have meant shrinking to fit their limited version of you. And you were never designed to shrink. So now they sit with the realization that their underestimation wasn't harmless. It was costly. It cost them access. It cost them insight. It cost them the privilege of watching you become someone they were never prepared to respect. And the irony stings them. They thought you cared too much. But the truth is, you cared so intelligently, so intentionally, so strategically, that once the data no longer justified their presence, the exit was immediate, clean, precise, final. And the humor, the dark, clinical, quiet humor, lies in this. They will still try to decode you using an outdated map. They will search for the version of you that no longer exists, hoping to regain entry through emotional fingerprints that have long since been wiped clean. They will try to retrace steps in a maze you burned down months ago. They will try to re-enter a psychological space that disappeared the day you realized their influence was a liability. But the doors they once walked through have been locked, not out of spite, but out of evolution. The version of you they knew was a temporary stage, a transitional model, an early draft. You are not returning to it. You are not revising it. You are not apologizing for outgrowing it. And when they finally understand that your transformation is irreversible, that your psychological distance is permanent, that your growth is now a self-sustaining organism moving independently of their existence, they will spiral again. Not because you hurt them, but because they never imagined you could operate at a level where their presence is irrelevant. It hits them like a delayed detonation, the kind that doesn't make noise, doesn't break windows, doesn't leave scars on the surface, but destroys foundations underneath. Because losing access to someone they underestimated is one kind of pain. But losing access to someone they didn't even realize was evolving beyond their comprehension, that's psychological freefall. That's ego extinction. That's the unraveling of an entire internal identity constructed on the assumption that they mattered more to you than you ever let on. And the irony, the clinical dark humor embedded in the entire situation, is that their spiral isn't rooted in your absence. It's rooted in your indifference. If you were angry, they could interpret themselves as important. If you were heartbroken, they could still imagine they had impact. If you were bitter, they could pretend they still lived in your mind. But indifference, emotional neutrality, silence that doesn't tremble or hint or crack, that's the kind of psychological hit that no ego survives cleanly. Because your indifference tells the truth they're terrified to face. They were never as central to your world as they believed. Your evolution didn't slow down when they left. It accelerated. Your peace didn't collapse without them. It crystallized. Your intelligence didn't dim in their absence. It expanded. They see it now. They feel it now. They sense your mind operating in a bandwidth they cannot reach. They watch your energy shift in ways they cannot predict. They observe your calmness and mistake it for emptiness, not realizing it's the calmness of someone who no longer needs external validation to justify internal certainty. You aren't performing strength. You aren't pretending to be detached. You are detached, cleanly, confidently, permanently. And that permanence is the real psychological operation they can't recover from. Because now they're left asking the questions they never prepared themselves to face. Questions that gut them because the answers strip their illusions bare. What else did they misread? What else did they underestimate? How long were you evolving while they were standing still? How many layers of you did they never access? How many phases of you did they never meet? How much intelligence did they talk over? How much strategy did they dismiss? They're realizing, painfully, that everything they assumed about you was based on the version of you that existed before you understood your own power, before you mastered your silence, before you weaponized your clarity, before you learned to detach without the theatrics they relied on to feel significant. You didn't just level up. You evolved out of their psychological reach. And the more they analyze it, the worse it becomes. Because they see it now, the signs of your ascension were always there, hidden beneath the emotional debris they kept creating. Your restraint wasn't fear. It was control. Your silence wasn't confusion, it was discipline. Your detachment wasn't instability, it was strategy. Your boundaries weren't petty. They were the first indicators that you were done letting people with chaotic minds dictate the rhythm of your peace. They laughed at the early signs of your evolution because they thought they were witnessing collapse. They weren't. They were witnessing emergence. And now, whenever your name comes up in their mind, it no longer comes with the arrogant comfort of believing they know you. It comes with a tension, a pulse, a tightness in the chest that whispers a far more unsettling truth. They never knew you. They only knew the version of you that existed before you recognized the full reach of your own mind. That realization is the real punishment, not something you inflicted, but something their ego generated on its own. Because there is nothing more psychologically destabilizing than realizing you underestimated someone who was already 3 phases ahead. Nothing more humiliating than recognizing the petty behavior you mocked was actually preparation for a transformation you can no longer participate in. Nothing more sobering than confronting the fact that the person you tried to dominate was the one quietly documenting your weakness in high definition. Now they carry that knowledge like a weight they cannot drop. It colors every memory, contaminates every assumption, haunts every attempt to rewrite the past. They cannot unsee it. They cannot unknow it. They cannot pretend the revelation didn't rupture something inside them. And as for you, you don't even feel the impact of their realization. You're too far ahead, too deeply transformed, too uninterested in revisiting the psychological battlefield you already left victorious. Your mind has moved into expansion mode now, building networks of clarity, connections of purpose, visions too large for the environment you outgrew. The operations you run now aren't about analyzing the past, but architecting the future. You are scaling internally, evolving structurally, reinforcing your emotional intelligence with the kind of precision that makes old wounds irrelevant and old narratives obsolete. They called it petty. They called it dramatic. They called it emotional. They called it overreaction. But the truth has arrived too late for them to digest comfortably. It wasn't pettiness, it was pattern recognition. It wasn't drama, it was data filtering. It wasn't emotional chaos, it was emotional strategy. It wasn't a reaction, it was a psychological operation they didn't have the literacy to interpret. And now, standing on the outside of your evolution with no way back in, they finally understand the one truth that puts every piece into place. You were never running from them. You were running beyond them. And now that you're gone, now that your silence is permanent, now that your growth has outpaced their relevance, they must watch a version of you rise that their presence would have only slowed. A version of you sculpted from clarity, precision, self-respect, and strategic detachment. A version of you they can observe, but never influence again. And that is the ultimate psychological operation. Not the moves you made when they were still in your life, but the future they will never be invited to witness. Well, well, well. Look who got brave behind the glass. Look who mistook a screen for a throne and a private chat for a command center. Hello, you beautifully inconvenient problem in their neat little universe. Yeah, you. The one they checked on once, then twice, then every day like it was a medication they hate taking but can't stop. The one who turned curiosity into compulsion. The one whose name sits in their search bar at 3 a.m. like a guilty prayer. They call it research. They call it keeping tabs. They call it just making sure. But their thumbs don't move like concern. Their attention doesn't taste like protection. It tastes like hunger. It tastes like obsession, dressed up in polite language so they can sleep at night. And here's the part that made the ones observing you panic. Something big observed them first, not after. Not because you exposed them before. While they were still congratulating themselves for being strategic. While they were screenshotting your posts and analyzing your silence like it was a secret code. While they were sending their concerned scouts, fake friends with soft voices, sharp questions, and sympathy that felt rehearsed. They thought they were the hunters. They didn't realize they were the loudest prey in the room. They didn't realize their little operation had a scent. And some systems don't even need eyes to track you. Just pattern, just behavior, just repeated mistakes. You've felt the pressure, haven't you? That strange tightening around your life whenever you were about to rise. A message that arrives at the perfect time to distract you. A sudden misunderstanding that smells manufactured. A friendly face that asks for details they don't need. A compliment that lands like a probe. That wasn't imagination. That was people trying to map you, trying to reduce you into something predictable, containable, easy to label. They wanted you explainable so they could dismiss you. Because if you're explainable, you're not scary. If you're just like everyone else, then their envy doesn't have to hurt. Then their mediocrity can keep breathing. And here's the cruel joke. You don't scare them with what you do. You scare them with what you refuse to do. You don't perform panic for their entertainment. You don't beg for approval. You don't collapse when they poke you. You don't give them the meltdown clip they can pass around like a trophy. You keep building. You keep moving. You keep your spine. That kind of steadiness makes insecure people start acting like unpaid investigators. They form teams. They compare notes. They trade screenshots like currency. They turn your existence into a group project because they're too small to face you alone. But amateurs always reveal themselves the same way. They get repetitive. Obsession makes you predictable. Predictable makes you measurable. And measurable means you can be managed. That's why the bigger observer noticed them. Not because your watchers are important. They're not. Because they're noisy. Because they coordinate in ways that scream liability. Because they touch boundaries like they're optional. Because when a group of people starts treating someone's life like a surveillance project, they start leaving fingerprints everywhere without realizing it. Not literal fingerprints, behavioral ones, digital ones, social ones, professional ones, the kind that show up later in the form of, "Hey, has anyone else noticed this person is weirdly fixated?" And no, this isn't a cosmic fairy tale where karma kicks down the door with a cape on. This is the boring, silent machinery of consequence. The kind that lives in HR conversations, security audits, legal cautions, brand protection, leadership instincts, and those quiet phone calls that never become public but change trajectories. Real power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't argue. It doesn't expose. It adjusts conditions. It redirects outcomes. It filters access. It decides who is safe to elevate and who is too unstable to keep near anything important. So while they were refreshing your page, something else was tracking theirs. While they were analyzing your silence, something else was analyzing their fixation. While they were building a narrative about you, something else was building a profile about them, made of forwarded screenshots. Just so you know, messages, uneasy conversations, pattern notes, and that career-ending phrase delivered with a polite smile. Keep an eye on this person, because real observation isn't about secret information. It's about intent. It's about what you repeatedly choose when you think no one serious is paying attention. They thought hiding behind fake accounts made them invisible. They thought private chats were a shadow. But shadows only exist because there's a light somewhere, and someone just turned on the floodlights. Now they're noticing tiny shifts in their own world. Invitations that don't come. Replies that take longer. Opportunities that drift elsewhere. People who keep conversations shallow around them. Doors that used to open easily now require more review. A manager who suddenly gets cautious. A friend who stops laughing at their little updates about you and starts looking uncomfortable instead. Not because anyone is attacking them, because systems don't attack. Systems filter, and the irony is thick. They can't complain without confessing. Imagine them trying to explain, "I think I'm being watched." The immediate question becomes, why would anyone watch you? And then comes the question they can't survive. What were you doing that made you afraid of documentation? Innocent people don't fear receipts. Clean hands don't panic when the lights come on. They only panic when they know their behavior looks ugly from any angle that matters. They only panic when they realize their concern sounds like obsession. When you remove the cute wording and look at the pattern. Now let's talk about your orbit, because this is where their little operation starts collapsing. Some of the people they sent toward you came back different. Not because you hypnotized them, not because you converted them, because reality did something brutal to the script they were carrying. They expected a monster. They met a human. They expected chaos. They saw focus. They expected manipulation. They found someone who doesn't need to manipulate because your presence already shifts rooms. And when a spy meets truth, their loyalty gets complicated. Sometimes they come back quiet. Sometimes they come back uneasy. Sometimes they come back with that look in their eyes that says, "Wait, Are we the bad guys? That question is poison to a group built on ego, because it forces a mirror. And mirrors are deadly to people who built their personality out of watching someone else. Your watchers don't actually know who they are without you as a reference point. They measure themselves against you, resent you, track you, rehearse conversations about you, because talking about you distracts them from the fact they're not becoming anything. You are their excuse and their entertainment. You are the distraction that keeps them from facing their own emptiness. And when you stop feeding that distraction, they start twitching. They start spiraling. They start needing a reaction the way an addict needs a hit. That's when they turn on each other, because paranoia eats teams from the inside. If the mission is built on obsession, the first sign of exposure makes everyone scramble to save themselves. Suddenly they're asking, who talked? Who screenshotted this? Who leaked? They start policing each other, which is hilarious because it proves they always knew what they were doing was wrong. Innocent people don't fear documentation. Guilty people do. And the moment guilty people suspect they've been noticed by something bigger, they start rewriting history in real time. I never said that. I didn't mean it like that. You're taking it out of context. The classic songs of people who relied on darkness, then got shocked by light. And here's the darker, funnier layer. You didn't even have to fight back. That's what's driving them insane. You didn't go nuclear. You didn't make a spectacle. You didn't beg for sympathy. You didn't build your identity around being hunted. You did the worst possible thing to people who survive on attention. You became boring under scrutiny, clean, consistent, restrained. You starved them of the only thing they truly wanted, your emotional energy. You refused to give them the satisfaction of watching you bleed in public. You kept your dignity so intact that their obsession started looking embarrassing, even to the people who used to clap for it. And the bigger observer, the something big, isn't impressed by their speeches, their captions, their sudden growth posts, their fake peace. It watches the pattern, who they target, how they coordinate, what boundaries they cross, how they respond when they don't get access, how they behave when they think a screen makes them untouchable. Once a system learns your pattern, you can't talk your way out of it. You can't motivational quote your way out of it. You can't pretend it was just jokes when the pattern shows intent. You can only stop or get managed. And being managed is humiliating because it looks like bad luck from the outside, while feeling like suffocation on the inside. So here's what's happening right now. Beneath all the noise they tried to create, the weight is sliding back onto them, slowly, quietly, like gravity returning to the object that thought it could float forever. And the next time they open their group chat to run their little briefing on you, they're going to notice something colder than silence. Caution, short replies, missing enthusiasm. People suddenly remembering there are consequences for being the kind of person who spends their life watching someone else instead of building their own life. They're going to feel it in the way the room doesn't echo back the same. They're going to feel it in the way even their own allies start typing, then deleting, then going quiet. And that's when the panic turns real. Because if they've noticed the shift, they're going to do what obsessive people always do when they feel the leash tighten. They're going to make one last move to prove they still have access, one last probe, one last innocent reach, one last test to see if you'll react. And the second they do, they're going to learn the difference between being curious about you and being flagged as a problem. Because the bigger observer has been waiting for exactly that. One final data point, one final confirmation of intent, one final step that turns suspicion into certainty. And the moment that step happens, the next phase doesn't start with an explosion. It starts with a door quietly locking behind them. And you're going to feel the air change before you even know why. Because what happens next flows straight out of what they choose in that last desperate reach. And that last desperate reach is never as subtle as they think. It always wears the same cheap perfume. Hey, just checking on you. Heard something weird. Are you okay? I had a dream about you, so random. Someone mentioned your name, thought you should know. Translation: I'm still here. I can still touch the edges of your world. I can still pull a thread and see if you twitch. Because obsessive people don't want information. They want leverage. They want proof that your nervous system still responds to them, even if your mouth stays shut. Here's where the panic turns embarrassing. The moment they sense the leash tightening, they start performing innocence like it's a paid role. Suddenly they're posting about healing. Suddenly they're quoting boundaries. Suddenly they're preaching privacy like they invented it. Suddenly they're protecting my peace every 6 hours like it's a hostage statement. Real peace doesn't beg for witnesses. This is reputation CPR. This is a public rebrand written by private fear. Because they can feel the atmosphere changing around them, and they don't know how to stop it, and they keep misdiagnosing the threat. Because ego makes people stupid in the most predictable way. They think you did something. They think you reported them. They think you called a powerful friend. They think you're plotting revenge. They cannot accept the simplest truth. You didn't need to lift a finger. Their own pattern got them noticed. Their own obsession did the paperwork. Their own group chat wrote the confession. The bigger observer didn't wake up because you screamed. It woke up because they couldn't stay quiet. That's the difference between amateur watching and real observation. Amateurs watch for gossip. Real observers watch for pattern. Amateurs want screenshots. Real observers want intent. Amateurs want drama. Real observers want risk reduction. And your watchers, these midnight investigators with shaky hands, have been gifting intent like it's a holiday. Every refresh, every burner account, every accidental run-in, every proxy they send to fish for details, every coordinated pylon they call just joking. They've been leaving fingerprints in places they didn't even realize had cameras. The bigger observer isn't impressed by their stories, because stories are excuses people tell themselves to stay comfortable. It doesn't care if they claim it was concern. It doesn't care if they swear it was curiosity. It looks at the output. How many times? How coordinated? How long? How invasive? Who do they recruit? What boundaries do they cross when they think no one serious is watching? Because that's the real test. People reveal who they are when there's no immediate consequence, and your watchers have been revealing themselves on repeat. Now let's get specific about what something big actually looks like. Because your watchers imagine spy movies, cloaks, secret handshakes. Reality is more humiliating than their fantasies. It's boring adults with responsibilities who don't tolerate instability near anything valuable. Security teams who don't want reputational risk. HR professionals who can smell fixation through a smile. Legal teams who hear coordinated harassment and immediately think liability. Platform safety teams who track brigading patterns, even when accounts rotate names and avatars like masks at a costume party. It's also social systems that don't need badges. friends who get tired of hearing your name every day, colleagues who notice someone's eyes light up with a strange heat when you're mentioned, partners who start asking, "Why do you care so much?" Family members who feel secondhand embarrassment at the obsession, people in their circle who quietly get disturbed and start saving messages just in case, not out of loyalty to you, out of self-preservation, because obsession is contagious and nobody wants to be collateral damage when it finally blows back. Once those notes start moving, your watchers don't get exposed. They get deprioritized. They get slowed down. They get filtered. They get handled with caution. And in a world where access is everything, caution is a cage. That's why their panic leaks sideways. They don't approach you directly because cowardice is part of the profile. They circle. They send proxies. They use mutuals like fishing lines. They try to gather information through third parties, then pretend it was accidental, like their curiosity just happened to trip and fall into your orbit again, because they're still trying to win the old game. If you snap, they get a story. If you explode, they get to point and say, "See? We were right." If you fight, they get to play victim. If you collapse, they get to celebrate. But if you stay calm, if you stay boring under surveillance, you leave them nothing but their own ugliness. And that is the worst outcome for an obsessive person, being forced to stare at themselves with no distraction. They need your reaction so they don't have to reflect. They need you to burn so they can pretend they're firefighters. The bigger observer loves your calm because calm creates clean data. Calm removes noise. Calm turns you into the control group. They become the experiment. And obsessive people cannot tolerate being the experiment, because it means the spotlight is finally on their behavior, not your existence. So they escalate. They recruit more eyes. They embellish stories. They inflate lies. They build a mythology where you're a villain, a threat, a problem they must manage. Not because you did anything, but because your silence makes them feel seen. And insecure people treat being seen like an attack. Here's a detail that makes them sick. Sometimes the something big doesn't even have to decide manually. A lot of systems are designed to notice red flags repeating, unusual traffic patterns, coordinated reporting, sudden bursts of attention from clustered accounts, repeated contact attempts after being ignored, patterns of harassment across time. It's not romantic, it's mathematics. And mathematics doesn't care about their excuses. So when they make that last probe, the one they think is small, it lands like a neat little confirmation in a ledger that doesn't forget. And once an alarm triggers, it doesn't mean a superhero arrives. It means a file starts, a note gets made, a ticket gets created, a manager gets looped in, a compliance officer asks a quiet question, a platform assigns a risk score, a team flags an account cluster, a workplace quietly decides, "We don't need this person near sensitive projects." Your watchers hate this part because it's boring. They wanted drama. They wanted you to react. Instead, the consequence arrives like paperwork, and paperwork is forever. And this is the part they can't stand. The bigger observer doesn't need to hate them to end them. It only needs to classify them. Once you're classified as unstable, fixated, and comfortable with coordinated harassment, you become expensive to keep around. You become a risk that has to be managed, a fire that might spread, a headline waiting to happen. So your watchers get quietly moved away from anything that matters, not punished in public, not dragged on a stage, just redirected slowly into smaller rooms everywhere with lower trust, fewer permissions, and less oxygen. The cage is administrative, and it's brutal. Watch the exact moment their group chat energy changes. It's subtle. Fewer jokes, more "be careful." Someone typing, "Yo, chill with that." Someone else saying, "Delete that." A new tone. The tone of people suddenly remembering consequences exist. And then the first time someone says the quiet part out loud, the spell breaks. What if this comes back on us? Once that sentence enters the room, the fantasy dies. The whole operation was built on the belief they could do this forever, with zero cost. The moment cost becomes imaginable. Loyalty starts sweating. Fear turns teams into paperwork machines. Not dramatic betrayals, boring ones. Casual, just a heads-up messages. Forwarded screenshots to someone who actually has authority. A quiet conversation with a manager. A colleague mentioning it to HR as a concern. A partner asking a lawyer friend a hypothetical. A friend saving messages in a folder labeled something innocent, like MISC. Obsessive people think betrayal looks like a knife. In reality, betrayal looks like a timestamp, a screenshot, and a person saying, "I don't want this near me." And here's the comedy. While they're still watching you, they start watching each other. They track who viewed the story. They check who's still loyal. They police language. They coach each other on deniability. They start saying things like, "Don't type that," which is the loudest confession on earth. People doing nothing wrong don't hold meetings about how to look innocent. They don't rehearse excuses. They don't rewrite their memory. Only guilty groups do that. Only insecure groups do that. Only people who know they were trespassing suddenly care about optics. The bigger observer watches this stage carefully, because the cover-up is a character test. When people realize they might be held accountable, do they stop? Do they reflect? Do they apologize? Or do they hide, gaslight, and double down? Your watchers choose hide every time. And that tells the bigger observer what it needs to know. This isn't a misunderstanding. This is a pattern. This is who they are when the lights come on. And systems don't negotiate with patterns. They adjust around them quietly and permanently, like closing a valve. Now listen closely to the topic, because this is the blade. The ones observing you panicked because something big observed them first. First means before they got scared, before they started deleting, before they remembered privacy, before they started quoting mental health like a shield, before they ran the public rebrand. The bigger observer already had the receipts, already had the pattern, already saw them in their natural habitat, confident in cruelty, intoxicated by secrecy, convinced a screen makes them invisible. That's why deletions don't save them. Deleting a message doesn't delete the behavior that produced it. Deleting a chat doesn't delete the pattern that created it. And the bigger observer isn't hunting a single screenshot. It's building a profile. It's measuring the shape of a person. It's predicting future behavior from present habits. If someone coordinates harassment for entertainment, how do they behave with real authority? If someone stalks for ego, how do they handle sensitive information? If someone needs a target to feel alive, what happens when they're given a position where people depend on them? So what happens next isn't a dramatic gotcha. It's a quiet narrowing of their world. Opportunities that almost happen but don't. Collaborations that pause. Invitations that stop arriving. References that go lukewarm. Background checks that take longer. Projects that get reassigned. A manager who suddenly documents conversations. A policy reminder that feels oddly specific. Nothing they can point to and scream persecution. Just 1,000 tiny adjustments. that add up to a completely different trajectory. And because they're addicted to control, they'll blame anything but themselves. They'll blame you because ego needs a villain. They'll blame haters. They'll blame the algorithm. They'll blame the economy. They'll blame energy. They'll even blame spiritual warfare, which is always funny coming from people who tried to weaponize attention like a curse. They will blame the weather before they blame their own obsession, because admitting the truth would mean admitting they were the unstable variable all along. Meanwhile, you're doing the most dangerous thing you can do to a parasite. You're not reacting. You're not feeding it. You're building your life like their obsession is background noise, because that's what it is. And that drives them into a special kind of madness, because it forces them to face the one thing they've been avoiding, their own emptiness. They used you as entertainment. They used you as a ladder. They used you as a mirror to feel taller. They turned your life into content because they didn't have a life that felt worth watching on its own. So they tried to drag you back in. One last probe, one last innocent reach, one last fake coincidence. They like an old post. They message a mutual. They ask a question that has nothing to do with anything. They don't want conversation. They want confirmation that they still exist in your world. And that's the moment the bigger observer says, "Perfect. Thank you for confirming intent." Because real observation doesn't need you to confess. It needs you to repeat the behavior when the risk rises. Repetition under pressure is the clearest signature there is. Here's where you feel the air change before you know why. The moment they make that last reach, you'll notice a strange calm in your body. Like your nervous system finally realizes it's not alone in the room. You'll feel less hunted, less pressed, less watched. Not because they stopped looking, but because their looking stops mattering. Their gaze loses power the moment they become the liability. They were never dangerous because they were strong. They were dangerous because they were unchecked. And now they're being checked in ways they can't argue with, can't screenshot, can't charm their way out of. You don't have to celebrate. You don't have to expose. You don't have to posture. You keep moving. You respond with absence, with the kind of non-reaction that feels like a courtroom. You don't announce them. You don't write a thread. You let the door close and you keep walking. And to an obsessive person, that feels like death, because it confirms the one thing they fear most. They never had control. They never had access. They were only ever trespassing, and trespassing always ends the same way, with the property owner not even needing to raise their voice. So watch how they start to unravel. Watch how their confidence turns into caution. Watch how their jokes turn into whispers. Watch how whispers turn into deletions. Watch how deletions turn into paranoia. And watch how paranoia turns them into the very thing they accused you of being: unstable, obsessed, unsafe. They will keep trying to prove they still have access, and every attempt will only make the profile clearer. Every attempt will feed the bigger observer one more data point, one more confirmation, one more reason to tighten the quiet net around their options. Because that's the brutal truth about being observed by something bigger. It doesn't rush, it doesn't rage, it doesn't miss. It waits for the pattern to complete itself, then it moves with quiet finality. And as your watchers scramble to pull you back into their little theater, they don't realize the board has already shifted under their feet, and the next small move they make, the one they swear is harmless, is about to trigger the kind of consequence that doesn't look like punishment at first, until they turn around and realize the door behind them has been locked for a long time. Doors don't slam when real power closes them. They seal. They slide shut without sound, like a vault deciding you no longer qualify as trusted. And the funniest part is, your watchers never notice the exact second it happens. They only notice later, when they reach for the same old strings, and the strings aren't attached anymore. They tug harder. Nothing. They try a different angle. Nothing. They send a proxy with a friendly face and a just checking on you script. And the proxy comes back with no story, no leverage, no useful reaction to report. Just emptiness. And emptiness is terrifying to people who survive by pulling threads. Obsessive people don't want information. They want leverage. They want proof that your nervous system still responds to them, even if your mouth stays shut. So they run the last play in the book. The innocent reach, the random message, the nostalgia bait, the fake concern, the compliment that smells like a trap. They want a reaction, any reaction, because reaction is oxygen to a parasite. If you react, they can crawl back to their group chat and say, "See, we still matter. We still have influence. We can still touch the edges of their world." If you don't react, they have to face the truth. They were never powerful, just noisy. But here's the difference between curiosity and a problem. Curious people stop when a boundary appears. Problems treat boundaries like an insult. Problems escalate. Problems recruit. Problems coordinate. Problems hide behind, "We're just worried," while their behavior looks like a stalking hobby dressed up as a wellness check. And your watchers have been loud about it for too long. They assumed secrecy. They assumed nobody serious was paying attention. They assumed a screen makes them invisible. Screens don't hide patterns. Screens record them. So watch what fear does to their personality. It turns them cosmetic. They start performing innocence like it's a job. Suddenly they're posting about healing. Suddenly they're quoting privacy. Suddenly they're preaching, "Mind your business," like they didn't build a whole identity around minding yours. They become loud about peace because they can feel their peace cracking. This is reputation CPR. This is a public rebrand written by private dread. And it won't save them, because the bigger observer doesn't evaluate outfits. It evaluates behavior, movement, pattern, intent. Real observation is boring. It doesn't need drama. It doesn't need revenge. It needs classification. Once a person gets classified as fixated, unstable, and willing to coordinate harassment, they become expensive to keep near anything valuable. That's where consequences begin. Not in public humiliation, but in quiet filtration. Invitations dry up. Doors that used to open easily now require review. Connections go lukewarm. Background checks take longer. A manager starts documenting conversations. A colleague stops laughing and starts watching. People don't want chaos near their names. People don't want liability near their money. People don't want instability near their peace. And your watchers become a walking risk assessment. And the best part, the part that makes your watchers feel insane, is that they can't complain without confessing. Imagine them trying to explain, "I think someone is watching me." The immediate question becomes, why would anyone watch you? Then comes the question they can't survive. What were you doing that makes documentation feel like a threat? Innocent people don't fear receipts. Clean hands don't panic when the lights come on. Only people who know their behavior looks ugly from any serious angle start sweating when the room gets quiet. Meanwhile, your life starts to feel lighter in a way you didn't even know you needed. Fewer weird coincidences, fewer random messages that feel like probes, fewer mutuals delivering updates like they're reporting from a battlefield, less noise at the edge of your day. Not because your watchers became moral overnight, but because their resources start shrinking. Their little operation turns into a lonely hobby, and hobbies get abandoned when they stop making you feel powerful. The moment their obsession stops feeding their ego, it collapses under its own stupidity. And here's the dark humor that lands like a blade. Your watchers thought your life was the movie. They thought they were the directors, but they were always just extras, and the bigger observer is the editor. It cuts their scenes quietly, not with explosions, with silence. One by one, their little moments of influence get trimmed out. They keep showing up to set, but the camera doesn't roll. They keep talking, but the sound is muted. They keep performing, but nobody claps. That's what it looks like when the world stops giving them clean angles to reach you. Now let's be clear. You were never helpless. You were never powerless. You were simply outnumbered by boredom and insecurity for a while. People mistook your patience for weakness because they don't understand restraint. They don't have it, so they can't recognize it. But the bigger observer recognized it immediately. Restraint is rare. Restraint is expensive. Restraint is what you get when someone has the ability to destroy and still chooses not to. Because they understand, attention is ammunition and the wrong targets are a waste of bullets. And yes, the bigger observer watched you too. Not because you're a suspect, but because you're the contrast. You're the control group. You're the person under pressure who didn't turn into poison. You had reasons to retaliate. You had proof. You could have gone public, scorched everything, and collected applause like a paycheck. But you didn't. You chose the move that terrifies weak people. Distance, growth, irrelevance as a weapon. You starved the obsession by refusing to feed it. So your instructions stay simple and clean. Do not feed them. No explanations. No setting the record straight essays. No subtle responses meant to sting. Don't post for them. Don't hint for them. Don't watch their stories to see if they noticed you not watching them. That's the trap. They want to keep you orbiting their chaos. Your power is in exit velocity. Your power is in becoming a dead end with a locked gate and no sign explaining why. They will try a last-minute apology that isn't an apology. Watch for the "I hope there's no bad blood" text. Watch for the "we should catch up" invitation. Watch for the nostalgia bait. I miss the old days. That's not love. That's damage control. That's someone trying to manufacture a friendly screenshot they can show later if their behavior ever comes back around. They'll manufacture innocence the same way they tried to manufacture evidence against you. Same playbook, different costume. Let them. People who build costumes forget the body underneath still moves the same. The bigger observer watches movement, not outfits. Underneath their rebrand is still the same need: control, entitlement, and the urge to turn someone else's life into a hobby because their own life feels too empty to stare at. Concern doesn't coordinate. Concern doesn't recruit. Concern doesn't obsess at midnight like it's paid overtime. Now the obsession starts eating them from the inside. Every notification becomes suspicious. Every silence feels like exposure. Every delayed reply feels like judgment. They become the paranoid mess they tried to manufacture in you. And it works on them because they have something you didn't: guilt. They remember the lines they crossed. They remember the jokes they made when they thought nobody serious was listening. They remember the private messages they would never want read out loud. So their minds do what guilty minds do: rehearse, rewrite, and panic. And here's the quiet nightmare. The bigger observer doesn't need to drop the other shoe. It can let them live in uncertainty while it quietly adjusts variables. That's the harsh elegance of it. They'll experience a lifetime of almosts, almost hired, almost promoted, almost invited, almost trusted, almost successful. Death by 1,000 paper cuts, each one too small to scream about, all of them together shaping a life that feels strangely cramped, like the walls moved in while they were busy watching you. At the same time, you start feeling a different kind of gravity. Not worship, not celebrity, just alignment, smoothness. Doors that open without begging, timing that works out. People who take you seriously without demanding you perform pain for credibility. You won't always know why. You don't need to. That's how real support looks. It doesn't require you to kneel for it. It shows up as quiet clearance, as space, as a path that stops feeling booby-trapped. Here's the twist they can't swallow. The bigger observer doesn't announce itself. It doesn't send warnings. It simply measures. It notices who keeps circling, who keeps tagging, who keeps asking questions that aren't theirs to ask. It notices the little campaigns, the coordinated concern, the timing of posts, the recycled narratives. Then it marks the pattern and quietly reroutes the environment around it. Not by attacking them, by reducing their access. They call it bad luck. It's just the unspoken mathematics of consequence. And the moment they feel that shrink, they understand. They were never the hunters, just tracked. Because this was always about selection. You were being tested, yes, but so were they. And they failed loudly. They revealed they can't handle someone existing at a higher frequency without turning it into a project. They revealed they don't build, they monitor. They don't create, they consume. They don't improve, they compare. And comparison is the cheapest drug on the planet. It gives you a fake high with no effort, then leaves you shaking when the high runs out and the mirror turns back on. So here's the ending they don't get to control. You don't become a story they can narrate. You don't become a rumor they can manage. You become momentum. You become a person whose life is too full to stalk effectively. You become so disciplined that noise can't hook you. You become so selective that weak people can't even reach you to feel important. And when they finally understand that something big observed them first, that their obsession has been recorded in ways they can't edit, they will do the only thing they should have done at the start. Walk away and hope nobody remembers. Let them pretend. Their panic is not your responsibility. Their discomfort is not your burden. Your job is to keep your head down and your standards high. Keep moving. Keep building. Keep your boundaries quiet and absolute. Because the most violent thing you can do to someone who tried to own your attention is to live well without acknowledging their existence. So if you feel the air changing, don't mistake it for danger. That's space. That's pressure leaving the room. That's the part of your life that was being crowded by small people, finally opening up again. Let the silence return. Let the noise starve. Let the watchers learn the cruelest truth about you. You don't need to punish them. Reality will. And the moment they understand that something big observed them first, they'll finally grasp what you already knew in your bones. Your life was never their playground.